I'm here on an island in Maine, and I would like to share with you some of my recipes. So, welcome to Heartwind Nest. Today we're going to be making a special apple pie. Hope you like it. So, of course, you want to first peel all your apples. You can peel them and cut them, or peel them all first and then cut them all. But basically, you want to prep your apples. So in this step, I take butter and I try to smooth it all over the dough. Just a thin thing. It helps when you roll it up. It helps keep it stuck together. I also think it helps be like a sticking agent for the cinnamon and the things you add. So the key is you want to add quite a lot of cinnamon because you need it to be really covered so that when you roll it up, you see that rust cinnamon color throughout the different layers. So I'm going to heavily coat it with cinnamon, and then I like to take just a tiny bit of brown sugar and pinch it on top of this. So I like the little extra sugar of having a tiny bit of brown sugar on this layer. So I don't measure, I just take some and pinch it out like that. So there you go. Okay, so now the fun part is you want to roll this up, and you want to roll it so that it's fairly tight and you can slice it. So you can start on either side. I think I'm going to start on this side. So you just want to slowly pick it up as best you can. When I first put this down, I put a little flour underneath it, which helps it pull up. But I'm going to roll this kind of as, as tight as I can. So, trying not to be too rough, just a little bit gentle. Roll it up until it's in a nice log. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to slice it. So, I find the first few slices don't always come out as beautiful as you want, but basically, I usually try to take this and I put it on a cutting board and I start to cut it. So usually there's some end stuff that I save for like picking up pieces or fixing pieces on the pie. And eventually, right about now, you start to get some decent kind of round slivers. So you're going to cut these little slivers. So basically you're going to take the little slivers and you're going to put them into your pie, and you're going to kind of flatten it down a bit. So I just keep cutting off little circles and I keep filling up the pie. So you put a few, put them all around. And I just kind of lightly press with my hand. I don't make it real thin. You'll see later that one of my secrets to my pie is that I pre-cook the crust. But I just take these little bit of circles, squash them down a little bit. Sometimes I go back later and squish it more. But you just want to go around the pie and get the whole bottom filled. And you could say, like, why do you bother to make this on the bottom? Because, like, who really sees the bottom of the pie? So unless you pick the pie up over your head and look at the glass on the bottom, most people don't know. But I think, first of all, it's fun and practice for doing the top beautiful. But the other thing that I've been complimented about when I gift out this pie is it is like spreading the treats and the yumminess. So in this particular case, now you have sugar and cinnamon all throughout like every layer. So normally you have just a bland dough, and then you have the cinnamon and sugar and the apples. In this case, you have the sugar and the cinnamon and all this yumminess throughout the whole pie. So recently when I brought it to a holiday event, people were saying it almost reminded them of apple crisp or something. And I think the thought on that is the fact that there is this really good flavor throughout the entire pie. So I'm just going to continue on with this, and I keep squishing it until I get all the layers done. And sometimes when I'm going up the sides, I actually cut the circles in half. I find that works. Like sometimes I cut them in half for the side part. So then it just seems to make sense to kind of do a half circle. But whether you're artistic or not artistic, I think the idea is just that you're trying to fill your pie plate to the best of your ability. So just keep going around until it's all filled in. And this just gives you an idea of like what it's looking like. Okay, so to make the top level, well actually, so I make the bottom just in the pie pan. But now thinking about it, you know, you could probably make them both this way if it was easier for you and then put it in. But for whatever reason, I seem to make the bottom just in the pan, and then the top I do out on a sheet of parchment or plastic or something, so that when the apples are all ready and good, I can just lay this out on top of the pie. And then I put the different rounds all around it, and I first kind of hand squish it, and then I found that I like to put a piece on the top and then give it just a little bit of a roll with a rolling pin. So I start by putting them on the thing and getting them a little bit flattened. In this particular case, I'm using the plastic that came with my pre-made pie crust, I should say. If you, for some reason, made your own pie crust, you know, then saran wrap or parchment paper or wax paper or something like that would be a good way to do this. I find that you'd like it to be on a surface that you can pick it up and lay it across the top of the pie. So I actually don't recommend sticking it right to your table or your countertop because I think it's hard to pick it up. So this way, once I get the whole thing done, you know, you can pick it up to easily put it on top of the pie. So I'm going to continue on with this, and then I will get back to you with the other steps. Looking awesome. So once I kind of lay out what I think is appropriate, I use the wrapping that comes from the pre-made dough, and I roll it out a bit. Now you could use parchment paper or something else, but you know, you got this kind of cool, fun, swirly thing that's going to have all kinds of good taste to it. Okay, so I melt some butter down in a pan, and then I actually put in approximately a cup of sugar, and you got to keep it low and pay attention to it, but I let this melt into like some kind of yummy goodness, but you definitely need to stay near the pan so it doesn't catch. And then I like to add my spices. So in this particular case, I'm going to do a half of a teaspoon of cloves and sprinkle that in there. That smells really good. You know, cinnamon's enough, so if you don't have the cloves or nutmeg, don't worry, but it's fun to try different things. So I did the half a teaspoon of the cloves, and I'm going to do the same of nutmeg and just sprinkle it on in there. I don't put a lot of cinnamon in this level just because there's so much cinnamon in the rest of the pie, but usually I'll put some kind of a dash or a little bit in here. So, and then to this I usually add like a quarter of a cup of water. In general, you need to figure this out, and just if it's too watery from your apples, you add a little bit more flour, but I think you can figure it out. So I let this like simmer until it kind of melts down good, and then I add the apples to it. So I'll turn this up just a bit because I'm right here. So as I cook the apples down, I just wanted to mention to you that I got this really beautiful Christmas gift to myself the other day. Very affordable. I think I paid $14. And I found it at a crafts thing in Portland. And there's a company called Sprig Woodwork. And they're here in Maine. And I'm pretty happy with this nice cherry utensil that I bought. So I'm going to try it over the next few months when I'm cooking. You'll see it in my videos. But if you're looking for handmade wooden spoons, they seem to have really nice things. So I think you'll hear more about it, and I'm going to test it out and see what I think. But as of now, I'm thinking they make a really nice cooking utensil. So now I have my apples pretty al dente and pretty awesome looking. So the final step for me, and different people do it in different levels, but my final step is to thicken it up. So I turn it back down. And I put approximately 3 tablespoons of flour, and I try to mix it all together. So I don't overly worry about a little bit of lump because I think it'll mix through or bake out. And again, I'm still trying to figure out the measurements of all this. So sometimes if I think the water came out of the apples and I think that I should add a little bit more flour, I do. But basically, you're trying to thicken it up now so it's a nice gooey mixture that you bake into the crust. So I put the flour and I let it do its thing. Some recipes use cornstarch. I actually prefer to use flour. As much as I cook all these yummy things for my friends and family, I actually don't eat much gluten. So one of the things I got to work on is making a nice gluten-free version of this. But again, it could be flour, it could be cornstarch, but for my recipe I use flour. So I'm going to let this thicken up a little bit, and then I'm going to put it into the pie crust. So at this stage I try to take my pie that I have already, the crust, and I droop it over the top. And then I try to pinch around the edges or do whatever I want to finish it off. So often I've found myself just squishing the edges, and I let the circle part be beautiful in the middle, but I don't go crazy about pinching up my edge anything too spectacular. But of course you can do whatever you want. So I just kind of make my circles fit back into my pie crust. And then before I bake it, I poke it with a fork. And I put a little egg batter on the top. So what I like to do is I take just some egg, full egg, beat it up, and I put it on the top. And you can either add a little sugar to that or not add a little sugar to that. But basically my next step is to put a little egg wash on the top.